The sound of a woman's scream shattered the quiet of the alley. Jake hadn't planned on it, hadn't planned on being anything but invisible. He was just a window cleaner, a man trying to outrun his past. But the second that scream cut through the night air, something in him snapped. 3 men, 1 woman, a city full of strangers, and yet, Jake acted like he'd done this 1,000 times before. In less than 10 seconds, the attackers were down, groaning on the cold pavement, and the woman was staring at him, wide-eyed and breathless. The thing she didn't know, though, was that the man in the coveralls wasn't just a janitor. He was a ghost, a soldier who had learned to disappear, but who still knew exactly how to kill. If this story resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I'm bringing you another story just as interesting and unforgettable as this one. And trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now, let's continue. The October wind whipped between Chicago's towers like a living thing, rattling Jake Sullivan's platform as he worked his squeegee across the windows of the Willis Tower's 40th floor. His movements were methodical, left to right, top to bottom, the kind of precision that came from muscle memory deeper than his current profession. Inside the building, office workers typed away at computers, held meetings, lived their normal lives. None of them noticed the window cleaner whose hands had once held weapons instead of cleaning tools. Jake's phone buzzed against his hip. The school again. Mr. Sullivan? This is Mrs. Patterson from Francis Parker, Sophia's teacher. His chest tightened. Is she okay? She's fine, but there was an incident at lunch. Another student made comments about her not having a mother. Sophia responded by putting him in what I can only describe as a very professional headlock. Jake closed his eyes. Even at 8, his daughter had inherited more than just his green eyes. I'll talk to her, he said quietly. Mr. Sullivan, Sophia's a wonderful girl, but she seems to be carrying a lot of anger. Have you considered? I'll talk to her, he repeated, ending the call. 5 years since Kandahar. 5 years since the mission that took his team, since the guilt drove him from the agency. 3 years since cancer took Beth, leaving him to raise Sophia alone. He'd thought Chicago would be far enough to run, thought manual labor would quiet the ghosts. But some things followed you no matter how many windows you cleaned. What do you think makes someone truly invisible? Their job, or the walls they build around their heart? Drop a comment below with your thoughts. 20 floors up in the same building, Victoria Chen stood before her corner office windows, watching the city blur through rain-streaked glass. The presentation had gone perfectly, another acquisition, another victory for Chen Technologies. Her board members had filed out with congratulations and admiring smiles, leaving her alone with her success. Her phone lit up with messages. Her mother, asking when she'd visit. Her sister, sending photos from her son's birthday party. Victoria deleted them unread. Family meant questions, meant explaining why she worked 18-hour days, meant admitting that her penthouse apartment echoed with the kind of silence that success couldn't fill. Ms. Chen. Her assistant, Patricia, peered through the doorway. Mr. Morrison from the Tokyo office is holding on line 1, and the Hartley group wants to move tomorrow's meeting to. Tell Morrison I'll call him back. Push Hartley to Thursday. Victoria didn't turn from the window. And Patricia? Go home. It's past 7. But you're still. Go home, Victoria repeated, softer this time. Someone should. Patricia hesitated, then gathered her things. Victoria listened to her assistant's heels click down the hallway, then the distant ding of the elevator. Alone again. The way she designed it. The way it had to be after Daniel, after discovering her husband of 5 years had been siphoning money from her company, after finding him in bed with her former best friend, after the divorce that made headlines in the Tribune's business section. She pressed her palm against the cool glass. Somewhere below, the window cleaner's platform descended past her floor. She caught a glimpse of a man in coveralls, his face turned away, focused on his work. There was something almost meditative about his movements, a grace that seemed at odds with such mundane labor. Victoria's stomach reminded her she'd skipped lunch again. The sushi place on Madison stayed open late, and the walk might clear her head. She gathered her coat and laptop bag, already mentally reviewing tomorrow's merger documents. The elevator descended in silence. The security guard at the desk nodded as she passed. "Working late again, Ms. Chen?" "The early bird gets the worm, Robert." "It's past 8, ma'am. I think all the worms have gone home." She managed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Then I'll have them all to myself." Outside, the October air bit through her designer coat. She'd forgotten how cold Chicago could get once the sun disappeared, how the wind funneled between buildings like a predator seeking prey. Her heels clicked against wet pavement as she turned down the alley that cut through to Madison, a shortcut she'd taken 100 times before. The first man stepped out from behind a dumpster when she was halfway through. Well. Expensive coat, nice bag. His smile revealed a gold tooth. Must be our lucky night. Victoria's hand tightened on her laptop bag. 3 years of self-defense classes flooded back, but her instructor had always emphasized the first rule: run if you can. She turned, only to find 2 more men blocking her retreat. "Please," she said, hating how her voice shook. "Take the bag. Take whatever you want." "Oh, we will," Goldtooth said, moving closer. "But maybe we want more than just the bag, you know?" Jake was loading his equipment into the van when he heard the voices echoing from the alley. "Not your problem," the voice in his head warned. "You're not that person anymore. You're just a window cleaner. A nobody." But his feet were already moving. The scene materialized in an instant. 3 men, 1 woman, a trap as old as cities themselves. The woman held herself with the rigid posture of someone trying not to show fear and failing. Designer clothes, expensive bag. The kind of person whose windows he cleaned, but whose world he no longer belonged to. "Hey," he called out, his voice carrying the kind of authority that made all 3 men turn. "Let her go." Goldtooth laughed. "Or what, janitor? You'll squeegee us to death." Jake stepped into the alley, his work boots splashing through puddles. "I'm asking nicely. Once." Something in his tone made Goldtooth's smile falter. The man pulled out a knife, its blade catching the dim light from the street. "Walk away, hero. This ain't your business." "You're right," Jake said, still moving forward. "It's not." Then why was he still walking? Why did his body already know exactly how this would go? The distance to each man, the knife's trajectory, the woman's position. 5 years of trying to forget, and his muscles remembered everything. "Last chance," Goldtooth warned. Jake's response was movement, pure, economical, devastating. The knife clattered across wet asphalt as Goldtooth's wrist snapped. A pivot, an elbow to the second man's throat. The third tried to run, but Jake's boot swept his legs before he made it 2 steps. 7 seconds. 3 men down. The violence so precise it looked choreographed. Victoria pressed herself against the brick wall, her laptop bag forgotten at her feet. The window cleaner, because that's what his uniform said he was, stood among the groaning men like he'd simply finished cleaning a particularly dirty pane of glass. No heavy breathing. No shaking hands. Just a terrible stillness that spoke of practice, of proficiency. Their eyes met across the alley. "Are you hurt?" His voice was different now, gentle, concerned. Human again. She shook her head, not trusting her voice. "You should go," he said, already backing away. "The police." "Who are you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. Something flickered across his face, pain maybe, or recognition of a question he'd been running from. But he just shook his head and melted back into the shadows between buildings, leaving her alone with 3 semi-conscious men and the echo of violence that had saved her life. Victoria's hands shook as she called 911. But even as sirens wailed closer, even as she gave her statement to responding officers. One question burned in her mind. Who was the window cleaner who moved like a weapon and disappeared like a ghost? The rain started as Victoria gave her statement to the police. Fat drops that turned the alley into a mirror of blurred lights and shadows. Detective Ray Kowalski, a veteran cop with tired eyes, took notes while his partner photographed the scene. "And this man who helped you," Kowalski said, "you'd never seen him before?" Victoria pulled her coat tighter. I think he works in the building. A maintenance uniform." "Can you describe him?" She closed her eyes, but all she could see was the way he'd moved. Water flowing around rocks, violence transformed into something almost beautiful. Brown hair, maybe 6 feet tall. Green eyes. She paused. There was a scar through his left eyebrow. Kowalski's pen stopped moving. "How did you notice a detail like that in the middle of an attack?" Because in that moment after the violence, when he'd asked if she was hurt, she'd seen something in those green eyes that made her forget 3 men were groaning at her feet. Something broken. Something that recognized the broken parts in her. "I don't know," she lied. The EMTs wanted to take her to Northwestern Memorial, but Victoria refused. She just wanted to go home, to wash this night off her skin, to pretend her carefully controlled world hadn't just shattered. But as her Uber drove through the rain-slicked streets, she couldn't stop thinking about the window cleaner who'd saved her life and vanished like he'd never existed at all. Jake sat in his truck 6 blocks away, watching the police lights paint the buildings red and blue. His hands were steady on the steering wheel, but inside, everything shook. 5 years of keeping that part of himself buried, and it had taken less than 10 seconds to resurrect it. The moves had come back like breathing, muscle memory carved into his bones at Fort Bragg, refined in places the news never mentioned. He'd promised Beth he was done with that life. Promised himself after Kandahar. Promised Sophia she'd have a normal father who did normal things. His phone buzzed. "Mrs. Rodriguez from downstairs, watching Sophia tonight. She's asking for you," the elderly woman said. "Says she can't sleep without saying good night. I'll be home in 10 minutes. He drove through the rain, trying to push down the adrenaline still singing in his veins. But he couldn't forget the woman's eyes, not the fear when she'd watched him dismantle 3 men, but the moment after. The recognition. Like she'd seen past the janitor's uniform to something underneath, something he'd spent years trying to kill. The apartment in Wicker Park was small but clean, filled with Sophia's drawings and the few photos he'd kept from better times. Mrs. Rodriguez met him at the door. She had the nightmares again, she whispered. About her mama. Jake's chest tightened. "Thank you for staying." He found Sophia curled in her bed, clutching the stuffed elephant Beth had given her. Even at 8, she looked so much like her mother it hurt. The same dark hair, the same stubborn chin. Only the green eyes were his. "Hey, baby girl," he said softly, sitting on the edge of her bed. She opened those eyes, still glassy with sleep and old tears. "Where were you?" "Working late. I'm sorry." "You smell different," she said, wrinkling her nose. Like when you come back from your bad dreams." Christ. Even his daughter could smell the violence on him. "Just rain, sweetheart. Go back to sleep." "Will you stay until I do?" "Always." He held her hand while she drifted off, watching her face relax into peace he couldn't find. In the living room, he pulled out his laptop and did something he'd sworn he'd never do. He looked up the woman from the alley. Victoria Chen, CEO of Chen Technologies. Divorced. No children. The business articles painted a picture of a brilliant woman who'd built an empire from nothing, who'd survived a very public betrayal and emerged stronger. But in every photo, he saw what others might miss, the careful distance in her smile, the walls behind her eyes. He closed the laptop. Not his world. Not anymore. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face in that alley. Not the fear, but the question, "Who are you?" He'd been asking himself the same thing for 5 years. Have you ever had a moment that changed everything, even when you tried to walk away from it? Share your story in the comments. Victoria stood in her shower until the water ran cold, but she could still feel the echo of violence in the air around her. She'd seen fights before, bar scuffles, security subduing protesters at shareholder meetings. But this had been different. The window cleaner hadn't fought those men. He'd simply handled them, like a surgeon removing tumors. She wrapped herself in a towel and padded to her home office, her wet feet leaving prints on the hardwood. The security footage from the Willis Tower filled her screen. She scrolled through hours of tape until she found him, the man in coveralls working his way down the building's face. The timestamp showed he'd been cleaning windows when she'd been in her meeting. Just another invisible person keeping the city running while deals worth millions happened behind the glass he polished. But the way he moved, even doing something as mundane as squeegeeing windows. She zoomed in on his face. The scar through his eyebrow was visible even in the grainy footage. His features were handsome in a rough way, like he'd been carved by harder tools than most. But it was his eyes that made her pause the video. Even at a distance, even through security footage, there was something in them that spoke of distances traveled, of things seen that couldn't be unseen. Her phone rang. Her head of security, Martin, sounded stressed. "Ms. Chen, I just heard about tonight. I'm increasing your detail immediately." "That's not necessary." "With all due respect, ma'am, 3 men attacked you. This might not be random. Your recent acquisition of Syntech has made enemies." She thought of the window cleaner melting into shadows. "I don't think it was about business, Martin. We can't take that chance. I'll have someone at your building in an hour." After she hung up, Victoria returned to the footage. She watched the window cleaner work, noticed how he always kept his back to the cameras, how he moved like someone who knew exactly where every security device was positioned. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up employee records for the building's maintenance contractors. There. Jake Sullivan. Hired 5 years ago. Clean background check. Too clean, the kind that felt sanitized. Single father. Address in Wicker Park. Previous employment listed simply as government service. She stared at his employee photo. It didn't capture what she'd seen in the alley. The lethal grace, the careful control, the way violence had flowed through him like water through a familiar riverbed. But those green eyes were the same, carrying weight that had nothing to do with washing windows. Her secure phone buzzed. A text from an unlisted number. "Stop looking for me. Please." Her blood chilled. She glanced around her empty apartment, suddenly aware of every shadow. How did he get this number? How did he know she was? The laptop screen flickered. The security footage she'd been watching disappeared, replaced by a single message. "You're safe now. Let it go." Then the screen went black. Victoria sat in the darkness of her apartment, rain pattering against windows that suddenly felt too thin. She should be terrified. Should call Martin, the police, someone. Instead, she felt something else entirely, a pull toward a mystery, toward a man who could disable her security systems as easily as he disabled 3 attackers. "Who are you?" The question burned in her mind. And why did part of her desperately need to know? Jake closed his laptop and rubbed his eyes. Hacking her system had been too easy. Her security was good, but not good enough to stop someone with his training. He just wanted to discourage her from digging deeper, from pulling at threads that would unravel both their lives. But he'd seen her search history, seen her pulling his employee records. Victoria Chen didn't become a CEO by letting mysteries go unsolved. And Jake Sullivan didn't survive 5 years of hiding by letting anyone get close enough to see who he really was. He stood at Sophia's doorway, watching his daughter sleep. She was why he'd walked away from the agency, why he'd buried Jake Ghost Sullivan and become just another invisible worker in Chicago's machine. But tonight, he'd let the ghost out, and ghosts had a way of not going back in their boxes. His phone buzzed. A number he hadn't seen in 5 years, but would never forget. "Heard you were back in the game," the voice said. Marcus Webb, his former handler. "Interesting police report crossed my desk. 3 men, taken down in under 10 seconds. Sound familiar?" "I'm retired." "No one retires from what we did, brother. We just take extended vacations." Webb paused. "The woman you saved, you know who she is?" "A civilian who needed help." "Victoria Chen isn't just any civilian. She's been developing AI systems for the Defense Department. Systems that certain people would very much like to acquire." Jake's blood ran cold. The attack. Maybe random. Maybe not. But now she's seen what you can do. And if the wrong people find out who saved her... Webb let the threat hang. "Might be time to move on. New city, new name. You know the drill." "I'm not running again." "Then you better hope she lets this go. For both your sakes." The line went dead. Jake stood in his dark apartment, caught between 2 worlds he'd tried to keep separate. Outside, Chicago slept under its blanket of rain, unaware that sometimes the people who cleaned its windows carried secrets that could shatter more than glass. In her penthouse, Victoria Chen stared at her black laptop screen and made a decision. Tomorrow, she'd find Jake Sullivan. Not because she needed to thank him or because she was curious about his past, but because in that moment after the violence, when their eyes met across a rain-soaked alley, she'd recognized something in him that she'd only ever seen in her own mirror. Someone else who'd learned to hide in plain sight, who'd built walls so high they'd forgotten what the view looked like from the ground. And maybe, just maybe, 2 people who'd forgotten how to be seen could remember together. The rain continued to fall over Chicago, washing the blood from an alley, carrying away the evidence of a moment that had changed 2 lives forever. But some stains went deeper than rain could reach, and some connections, once forged in fire and shadow, couldn't be severed by distance or denial. Tomorrow would bring questions, complications, consequences. But tonight, a window cleaner who used to be a ghost sat watching over his daughter, while a CEO who'd forgotten how to trust stared at her reflection in rain-streaked glass, both of them knowing that something had shifted in their carefully controlled worlds. Something that felt dangerously like hope. Dawn broke over Lake Michigan in shades of steel and pearl, finding Jake already at work. He'd chosen the Hancock Center today, as far from the Willis Tower as his contract allowed. His platform swayed gently at the 65th floor, Chicago stretching below him like a dream made of glass and stone. "You're avoiding her," he muttered to himself, dragging his squeegee across the window. Inside, early morning traders stared at screens full of numbers, their faces lit by artificial light. None of them noticed him. That was the point. His phone vibrated. Another text from Webb. "She's asking questions. Called in favors at the Pentagon." Jake's jaw tightened. Victoria Chen was proving more persistent than he'd hoped. He'd spent the night erasing digital footprints, closing old back doors, but she had resources he couldn't match. Not anymore. The platform's radio crackled. "Sullivan, call from the main office." "Go ahead." "Got a special request from Chen Technologies. They want you specifically for their building tomorrow." Jake watched his reflection in the glass, seeing the ghost of who he used to be overlaid on the window cleaner he'd become. "I'm booked solid. They're offering triple rate. Find someone else." "Jake." His supervisor sounded uncomfortable. "Ms. Chen said if you refuse, she'll terminate our entire contract." The squeegee slipped in Jake's hand, leaving a streak across the pristine glass. 300 employees depended on that contract. Families, mortgages, kids in college. He couldn't let his past hurt more innocent people. "Fine," he said finally. "Tomorrow morning." Across town, Victoria stood in her office, watching the sun paint Lake Michigan in fire. She hadn't slept. The police report sat on her desk, sanitized, missing key details. The security footage from the alley had mysteriously corrupted. Someone was cleaning up after Jake Sullivan, and they were very, very good at it. Ms. Chen. Patricia hovered in the doorway. Your 9 o'clock is here. And there's someone from the Department of Defense on line 2. Push the meeting to 10. And Patricia. Victoria turned, letting her assistant see the steel in her eyes. Find out everything you can about the window cleaning company's schedule tomorrow. Already done. Mr. Sullivan is assigned here at 8 a.m. Victoria nodded. Clear my morning. She picked up line 2, recognizing the voice immediately. General Howard, her primary contact for the AI defense contract. Ms. Chen. Heard you had some excitement last night. Nothing serious. 3 hospitalized attackers suggest otherwise. A pause. I also hear you're asking questions about certain personnel records. Victoria's spine straightened. If someone saves your life, wouldn't you want to know who they are? Some doors are better left closed, Ms. Chen. For everyone's safety. The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone, then at the city beyond her window. Somewhere out there, a man who moved like a weapon was trying to pretend he was nothing more than his coverall suggested. But she'd seen beneath that mask, and she recognized the cost of wearing one. She'd been doing it herself since Daniel's betrayal. When was the last time you saw someone's true face behind their mask? Tell us in the comments below. Jake picked Sophia up from school early. He found her in the art room, painting with the focused intensity she brought to everything. Hey, sunshine. Ready for ice cream. She looked up, paint smeared across one cheek. But it's not Friday. Maybe I just want to spend time with my favorite artist. They walked to Margie's Candies, Sophia's small hand in his. She ordered her usual mint chocolate chip with extra sprinkles. Jake watched her eat, memorizing every detail of her face. Are we going to move again? She asked suddenly. His heart stopped. Why would you ask that? You have that look. Like before, when we left Virginia. She poked at her ice cream. I like it here, Daddy. I have friends. We're not moving, baby. The lie tasted bitter. I promise. But that night, after she was asleep, he pulled out the go-bags from the back of his closet. Checked the fake passports, the emergency cash, the burner phones. Old habits died hard, and some never died at all. His phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. VC. He deleted it without responding. Victoria spent the evening in her private gym, pushing herself through combat drills her instructor had taught her. Each punch, each kick, felt different now. She understood what real violence looked like, how far her carefully controlled exercises were from what she'd witnessed in that alley. Her phone chimed. An email from her cybersecurity team, no trace of the system intrusion. Whoever did it was a ghost. She smiled at the word choice. A ghost who cleaned windows. A warrior who'd chosen to disappear. But she knew about disappearing, didn't she? After Daniel, she turned herself into something hard and smooth and untouchable. A reflection in glass, showing people what they expected to see. The next morning arrived too quickly. Jake stood in the lobby of Chen Technologies, his cleaning cart a poor shield against what was coming. Security had waved him through with knowing looks. She'd been expecting him. The elevator carried him to the top floor. He stepped out to find Victoria Chen waiting, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than he made in a month. But it was her eyes that caught him, direct, unflinching, seeing too much. Mr. Sullivan, she said softly. Or should I use your call sign? Ghost, wasn't it? Just Jake is fine. His voice came out steady. Professional. Which windows need cleaning? Drop the act. Please. She stepped closer. I know what you did for me. I know what it cost you to do it. And I know you've been running ever since Kandahar. The name hit him like a physical blow. You don't know anything. 3 days ago, I didn't. But I have resources, Jake. And friends in interesting places. She gestured to her office. Come in. Please. 10 minutes of honesty, then I'll never bother you again. He should walk away. Should take Sophia and disappear into the vast American night. Instead, he found himself following Victoria into her corner office, where floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city he usually saw from the other side. Why? He asked finally. Why dig into my past? Because I recognize someone else who's hiding. She leaned against her desk. The company I'm building, the contracts we're pursuing, they've made me enemies. Dangerous ones. I need someone I can trust. You don't know me. I know you had every reason to walk past that alley. To stay invisible. But you didn't. Her voice softened. I know what it's like to build walls so high you forget there was ever anything else. To trust no one because the last time you did, they destroyed everything. Jake's hands clenched at his sides. I can't help you. Can't? Or won't? Both. He turned to leave, but her next words froze him. I know about your daughter. Sophia, right? 8 years old. Lost her mother to cancer. Victoria's heels clicked on hardwood as she circled him. You're not the only one who can dig up secrets. The difference is, I want to help you protect yours. Jake's training screamed at him to neutralize the threat, to ensure his daughter's safety. But something in Victoria's voice, something in the way she held herself, defensive yet vulnerable, made him pause. What exactly are you offering? A job. Legitimate security consulting for my company. Better pay, better hours. A chance to use your skills without hiding who you are. She met his eyes. And maybe for both of us, a chance to remember what trust feels like. The moment stretched between them, fragile as spider silk. Outside, Chicago continued its endless dance of light and shadow, of secrets and revelations. And in a corner office high above it all, two people who'd forgotten how to be seen stood at a crossroads, wondering if some walls were built to be torn down. Jake thought of Sophia's question about moving again. Thought of the go-bags in his closet, the weight of always being ready to run. Then he looked at Victoria Chen, who'd fought her way through betrayal to build something real, who'd seen past his disguise to the truth underneath. I need time to think, he said finally. Victoria nodded, unsurprised. You have until tomorrow. After that. She shrugged. Well, windows still need cleaning, don't they? He left her there, riding the elevator down with his cleaning cart and his churning thoughts. The ghost in him said to run. The father in him was tired of running. And something else, something he'd thought long dead, whispered that maybe some risks were worth taking. His phone buzzed one last time. Webb again. She's not going to let this go. Make your choice. Jake stepped out into the Chicago morning, feeling the weight of decisions yet to come. Behind him, Victoria Chen watched from her window, seeing not the window cleaner walking away, but the warrior beneath, a man as trapped by his past as she was by hers. Tomorrow would bring answers, one way or another. But today, they both returned to their carefully constructed worlds, knowing that sometimes the hardest walls to break are the ones we build ourselves. The October wind howled through Chicago's concrete canyons as Jake stared at his phone the next morning. A text from his supervisor glowed on the screen. Chen Technologies just bought our company. All of it. Meeting at their HQ in 1 hour. Mandatory. His first instinct was to run. But Sophia's words echoed in his mind. I like it here, Daddy. I have friends. The Chen Technologies lobby buzzed with nervous energy. Window cleaners in their blue coveralls mingled awkwardly with suited executives. Jake stood apart, noting security camera positions, exit routes, old habits surfacing like sharks in shallow water. Victoria Chen stepped onto the small stage they'd set up, commanding attention without effort. Her charcoal pantsuit was immaculate, but Jake noticed the shadows under her carefully applied makeup. She hadn't slept either. "Welcome to the Chen Technologies family," she began. "I believe in vertical integration, and building maintenance is now part of our core operations. Your jobs are secure. Your benefits are improved." Her eyes found Jake's. "And some of you may find opportunities for advancement." After the announcement, she gestured for Jake to follow her. The elevator ride to her office was silent, charged with unspoken words. "That was manipulative," he said finally. "That was business." She poured 2 cups of coffee, handed him one. Black, no sugar. Military habit, right? He didn't take it. "You can't force me to work for you." "No. But I can make it very difficult for you to disappear." She sipped her own coffee. "Your daughter's school tuition is paid through next year. I took the liberty." Jake's muscles coiled. "Are you threatening my daughter?" "I'm protecting her." Victoria set down her cup. "The men who attacked me? They weren't random thugs. They were professionals, making it look random. Someone wants what I'm building, Jake. Someone who won't care about collateral damage. That's your problem. It became your problem the moment you saved my life." She stepped closer. 3 more attempts in the past week. My security caught them all barely. I need someone with your skills. And you need what I'm offering: stability, protection, a chance to stop running. A knock at the door interrupted them. Patricia, Victoria's assistant, looked flustered. "Ms. Chen? The Pentagon team is here early. They're heading up now." Victoria's eyes widened. "They're not scheduled until next week." They insisted. Something about a security breach. The elevator chimed. Jake moved instinctively, pulling Victoria behind her desk. "How many guards on your detail right now?" 2. "But they're on the ground floor." "Any other exits up here?" "The fire escape, but—" The office door opened. 4 men in suits entered, led by a silver-haired man Jake recognized instantly. Colonel Harrison Drake, the man who'd given the order in Kandahar. The order that got Jake's team killed. "Ms. Chen," Drake smiled without warmth. "We need to discuss your recent hiring decisions." Jake felt Victoria tense beside him. She'd recognized the threat in Drake's voice. "Colonel Drake," she said smoothly, "I wasn't aware the Pentagon took such interest in janitorial staffing." "Cut the act, Victoria. We know who he is." Drake's eyes locked on Jake. "Ghost. You're looking well for a dead man." Subscribe to find out what happens next, and tell us below, what would you do if your past suddenly walked through the door? Jake's mind raced through scenarios, each worse than the last. The office was a trap, too high up, too exposed. But Drake wouldn't risk a public incident. Not yet. "The AI defense system," Victoria said suddenly. "That's what this is about, isn't it?" Drake smiled again. "Smart girl. Your neural network is impressive. Self-learning, adaptive. Perfect for tracking certain individuals who'd rather stay hidden. I won't give you access. You already did, when you signed the contract." Drake spread his hands. "We're just here to ensure the system remains properly focused." Jake watched Drake's men spread out, blocking exits. Their suits couldn't hide the way they moved. Special forces, probably Delta. Like he used to be. "The attack in the alley," Victoria's voice was ice. "That was you. A test. We needed to flush out our ghost." Drake checked his watch. "Now we can do this the easy way." The lights went out. In the sudden darkness, Jake moved. His body remembered things his mind wanted to forget, the exact pressure to collapse a windpipe, the sound a shoulder makes before it dislocates. He caught Victoria's arm, pulled her toward the fire escape. "Wait," she whispered, fumbling with her desk drawer. "The hard drive." A bullet pinged off the desk. The emergency lights kicked in, painting the office in red shadows. Jake saw Drake's men moving with professional precision, saw Drake himself reaching for a phone. Victoria grabbed something from her drawer, then followed Jake to the fire escape. The October wind hit them like a fist. 19 floors down, Jake said. "Stay close to the wall." "I'm afraid of heights." "Then don't look down." They descended as gunshots echoed above them. Jake's mind was already planning. They'd need transportation, new identities. He'd have to get to Sophia before. "Jake." Victoria's voice shook. "I'm sorry. I didn't know they'd use my system to." Later. He helped her over a rough section. "Right now, we focus on surviving." His phone buzzed. "Webb. Ghost, you've got about 3 minutes before they lock down the building. There's a black SUV in the loading dock. Keys under the front tire. Get the girl and run." Victoria stumbled, caught herself. "Sophia." "Already handling it," Webb's voice was tight. "My team's picking her up from school now. Safe house in Wisconsin." Jake felt something crack in his chest. Relief, fear, gratitude. He'd forgotten what it was like to have someone watching his back. They reached the loading dock as sirens began to wail in the distance. Jake found the SUV, the keys exactly where Webb said they'd be. "Get in," he told Victoria. She hesitated. "Everything I built is worth less than your life." He softened his voice. "Trust me, please." Their eyes met in the red emergency lights, and Jake saw something shift in her expression. The CEO mask cracked, showing the woman beneath, scared but determined, wounded but unbroken. She got in. As Jake drove them out of Chicago, Victoria clutched the hard drive to her chest like a shield. Neither of them spoke until the city was aglow in the rearview mirror. "I really did just want to thank you," she said finally, "for saving me in that alley. I didn't mean for." "I know." Jake checked the mirrors for tails. "But some things, once started, have their own momentum. Like trust." He glanced at her, saw her watching him with those direct eyes that seemed to see through all his carefully constructed walls. "Maybe," he said softly. "Maybe that too." The SUV ate up highway miles as dawn painted the sky in shades of promise. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, the weight of decisions that couldn't be unmade. But for now, two people who'd forgotten how to trust drove through the morning light, carrying their broken pieces toward something that felt dangerously like hope. Jake's phone buzzed one last time. "Webb again. Sophia's safe. She says to tell you she still wants ice cream on Friday." Despite everything, Jake smiled. Some promises, it seemed, were worth keeping. The safe house sat on 20 acres of Wisconsin forest, far enough from the nearest town to spot visitors coming. Jake stood on the wraparound porch, watching Sophia chase falling leaves in the yard. She'd taken the sudden vacation better than he'd expected, treating it like an adventure. Victoria emerged from the house, 2 steaming mugs in her hands. "She's resilient. Like her mother." Jake accepted the coffee. "Beth would have handled all this better than me." "Tell me about her." The question was gentle, free of pressure. Jake watched his daughter spin in circles, her laughter carrying on the autumn wind. "Beth was a trauma nurse. That's how we met. I came in with 2 bullets in my shoulder, classified mission gone wrong. She patched me up, then asked me to dinner." The memory ached like an old wound. She knew what I was, what I did. Loved me anyway. Victoria leaned against the porch railing. "The cancer. Aggressive. 6 months from diagnosis to." He swallowed. I was in Kandahar when she first got sick. Couldn't even tell her I was coming home. Inside the house, Webb worked his secure phones, calling in favors, tracking Drake's movements. They'd been here 3 days, waiting for the heat to die down. Long enough for stories to surface, for trust to grow in the quiet spaces between heartbeats. "Your turn," Jake said softly. "Tell me about Daniel." Victoria's fingers tightened on her mug. Not much to tell. Brilliant programmer. Charming, I thought. She laughed without humor. "I thought he loved my mind more than my money. I was wrong. He stole from you. Money, corporate secrets, prototypes. Sold them to my competitors." Her voice turned bitter. "But the worst part? He made me doubt myself. Made me think I was paranoid for suspecting him. Classic gaslighting. Is that why you built the walls?" She met his eyes. "Same reason you did, I suspect. Easier not to trust than to be betrayed again." The screen door creaked. Webb stepped out, his face grim. "We've got movement. Drake's team hit 3 of my safe houses in Illinois." "How close?" Jake was already moving. "Too close. But that's not the worst part." Webb handed over a tablet. "Look what just went live on every major news site." The headline screamed in bold type, "Tech CEO Victoria Chen linked to international espionage. Pentagon sources allege corporate spying." Victoria's breath caught. "They're burning me." "Standard playbook," Webb nodded. "Discredit the target, isolate them, then they disappear." Jake had seen it before. Done it before. "My company," Victoria whispered. "My employees. Your board's already calling for your resignation. Drake's people are seizing servers, claiming national security." Webb looked apologetic. "The AI system? Locked in that hard drive." She gestured inside. "Encrypted. They can't access it without my keys. Which is why they're coming." Jake turned to Webb. "How long?" "Hours, maybe less. Local police, FBI, probably wet work teams disguised as federal agents." Jake closed his eyes, remembering another day when time ran too fast, when choices carried too much weight. Kandahar. The mission that ended everything. "Tell them," Webb said quietly. Victoria looked between them. "Tell me what?" Jake set down his coffee. Kandahar wasn't just a mission gone wrong. It was a setup. Drake needed to field test a prototype AI targeting system. My team was the test. Understanding dawned in Victoria's eyes. "He sacrificed your men to test military tech?" 4 good soldiers died because an AI system made the wrong call. Drake buried it, blamed human error. Jake's voice was steel. "That's why I ran. Not to hide, to protect my family from what he'd do to keep it quiet. And now he wants my AI." Victoria's laugh was hollow. History repeating itself. "No." Jake caught her arm. "Not this time." Sophia's laughter floated up from the yard, innocent and pure. Victoria watched her through tears she wouldn't let fall. "She looks happy," she said softly. "Despite everything." Beth taught her that. To find joy in small moments. Jake's throat tightened. To trust that love is stronger than fear. Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Understanding, recognition. The weight of shared wounds and shared strength. "I have a crazy idea," Victoria said. "Those are the best kind." Webb grinned. She pulled out her phone, showed them the screen. A private jet's flight plan, registered to a shell company Jake recognized as one of Webb's. "Drake thinks we're running." Her eyes sparked with dangerous intelligence. "So let's run. Very publicly. Let him chase us while my AI system does what it was really designed to do. Which is find buried secrets, like files about a certain mission in Kandahar. She smiled, and it was all sharp edges. Drake's not the only one who knows how to set a trap. Jake looked at his daughter, still dancing with falling leaves. Looked at Victoria, who'd lost everything but hadn't lost herself. Looked at Webb, who'd never stopped watching his back. Sometimes family wasn't what you were born into. Sometimes it was what you found when everything else was taken away. We'll need help, he said finally. Webb was already dialing. I know some ghosts who'd love to haunt Drake's past. Victoria's hand found Jake's, squeezed once. Trust goes both ways, she whispered. He squeezed back, feeling walls crumble, feeling hope rise like the sun through autumn trees. Sophia, he called. Time to come in, baby. We've got plans to make. His daughter ran to him, leaves in her hair, joy in her eyes. He lifted her up, breathed in her innocent smell, and made a silent promise to Beth's memory. This time, he wouldn't run from the fight. This time, he'd run toward something worth fighting for. Like and subscribe to see how our heroes turn the tables on their hunters. Have you ever had to choose between running away and running toward something important? Share your story below. The private jet touched down at O'Hare just after midnight. Jake watched Victoria work her phone, orchestrating their return to Chicago with the precision of a military operation. They'd spent 2 weeks moving through Webb's network of safe houses, letting Drake's team chase shadows while Victoria's AI program quietly mined classified servers. My lawyers have the injunction, she said, ending another call. Drake overplayed his hand. No warrant, no legal authority to seize my servers. He's not playing by legal rules, Jake reminded her. No, but appearances matter. He needs to look legitimate. She smiled, and it transformed her face. Besides, I have something he wants. They'd rented a furnished apartment in Lincoln Park under one of Webb's clean identities. Sophia had fallen asleep in the car, exhausted from their constant movement. Jake carried her inside, Victoria holding doors, moving together with the easy coordination of people who'd learned to trust each other's instincts. I'll take the couch, Victoria whispered as Jake tucked Sophia into bed. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Her eyes were soft in the dim light. This is your space. Yours and hers. But an hour later, Jake found her on the balcony, laptop open, the city lights reflecting in her unshed tears. The board voted, she said without looking up. I'm officially removed as CEO. My life's work, and they just... Jake sat beside her, close enough to offer comfort, far enough to respect boundaries. You'll get it back. Will I? She closed the laptop. Even if we expose Drake, the damage is done. My reputation, my company. You're more than your company. She turned to him then, and he saw past the CEO armor to the woman beneath, brilliant, wounded, achingly alone. Am I? I've spent so long being Victoria Chen, tech mogul, that I'm not sure who else I know how to be. Jake understood. He'd been ghost so long, he'd almost forgotten Jake Sullivan existed. Daddy. Sophia's voice drifted from inside. Bad dream. He started to rise, but Victoria caught his hand. Let me. The question hung between them, weighted with meaning. This was his daughter, his most guarded trust. But something in Victoria's eyes, a longing, a gentleness, made him nod. He watched from the doorway as Victoria sat on Sophia's bed, smoothing her hair with careful hands. Want to tell me about it? Victoria asked softly. The bad men were chasing us again. Sophia's voice was small. They took Daddy away. That won't happen. Victoria's voice carried steel beneath silk. Your daddy's the strongest person I know. And now he's got help. From you. From me. Sophia studied her with those two wise green eyes. Are you going to be our family now? Victoria's breath caught. She glanced at Jake, who felt his heart crack open at the hope in both their faces. I'd like to be, Victoria whispered. If that's okay with you. Sophia's answer was to curl into Victoria's arms, falling back asleep with the trust only children could manage. Victoria held her like she was made of spun glass and miracles. Jake moved into the room, sat on the bed's edge. She doesn't trust easily anymore. Not since Beth. Neither do I. Not since Daniel. Victoria's eyes met his over Sophia's sleeping form. Maybe that's why this works. We know the cost of trust, so we don't give it lightly. The next days blurred together in a dance of preparation and proximity. Victoria worked her network by day, rebuilding alliances, countering Drake's narrative. Jake coordinated with Webb, planning their counterstrike. But the evenings belonged to something else, to shared meals where Sophia chattered about school, to homework sessions where Victoria's patience with math amazed Jake, to quiet moments after Sophia slept when two damaged souls learned to exist in the same space without armor. Show me, Victoria said one night, gesturing to the laptop where Jake tracked Drake's movements. He taught her to read patterns in data, to spot the tells of surveillance teams. She taught him about corporate warfare, about using media as a weapon. They worked side by side, shoulders touching, sharing skills like secrets. You know what I miss most about my company? Victoria said during a break. The building. Stupid, right? But I designed every floor, chose every detail. It was the first thing that was truly mine. We'll get it back. Jake. She turned to face him fully. What happens after? When Drake's exposed, when the dust settles, do you go back to cleaning windows? Do I go back to my empty penthouse? He didn't have an answer. Couldn't imagine returning to invisibility after being seen so completely. Couldn't imagine Victoria's warmth replaced by professional distance. Daddy, Victoria. Sophia burst from her room, waving a paper. I got the lead in the school play. I'm going to be Annie. Victoria squealed, actually squealed, and swept Sophia into a spinning hug. That's amazing. We have to celebrate. Ice cream. Sophia asked hopefully. It's Tuesday, Jake protested weakly. Two sets of eyes turned on him, green and brown, both sparkling with mischief. Ice cream rules are suspended for leading roles, Victoria declared. I'm pretty sure that's a law. They went to Margie's, where Sophia regaled them with her audition story between bites of mint chocolate chip. Victoria asked about costumes, about rehearsals, about everything with genuine interest that made Sophia glow. Jake watched them bond over shared excitement, feeling walls inside him crumble like old concrete. You're staring, Victoria murmured while Sophia was in the bathroom. Sorry. Don't be. She reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. I'm happy too. The word hung between them, happy. When had he last felt it? When had she? That night, after Sophia was asleep, they sat on the couch reviewing Drake's files. Victoria had changed into one of his old t-shirts and yoga pants, her CEO armor completely abandoned. She looked younger, softer, devastatingly beautiful. There, she pointed at the screen. That's the connection. Drake's been using military contracts to fund private research. Your mission was just one test. Jake studied the data, but his attention kept drifting to the way lamplight caught in her hair, the way she bit her lip when concentrating. Jake. He realized she'd asked him something. Sorry, what? She smiled, knowing. I asked if you think Webb's contact at the Pentagon will move on this. If we give him enough evidence, he'll have to. And then. The question was bigger than strategy, bigger than Drake. It was about them, about the fragile something growing in the space between heartbeats. Jake closed the laptop, turned to face her fully. I don't know. I've been running so long, I forgot what standing still felt like. But this. He gestured to the apartment, to her, to the life they'd built in hiding. This feels like something worth staying for. Victoria's eyes shimmered. I've been alone so long, I forgot what together felt like. But with you, with Sophia. She took a shaky breath. I remember who I was before I built all those walls. And I think I like her. The space between them collapsed like a controlled demolition. Jake pulled her close, and she came willingly, fitting against him like she'd always belonged there. They didn't kiss, not yet. Just held each other, two people who'd forgotten how to be held, remembering together. We're going to win, Victoria whispered against his chest. We're going to expose Drake, get my company back, keep Sophia safe. How do you know? She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. Because now we have something he doesn't understand. Something more powerful than AI systems or military contracts. What's that? Each other. Outside, Chicago glittered in the darkness, unaware that in a small apartment in Lincoln Park, two broken people were building something unbreakable. Tomorrow would bring battles, revelations, the fight of their lives. But tonight they had this, trust growing into something deeper, walls becoming bridges, three separate hearts learning to beat as one. What's the most unexpected place you found family? Share your story and don't forget to subscribe for the next chapter of Jake and Victoria's journey. The Willis Tower gleamed in the morning sun as Victoria walked through the lobby she'd once commanded. Her heels clicked with purpose, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. They'd planned this carefully. Victoria would meet with the board while Jake and Webb's team moved into position. Remember, Jake murmured, his hand briefly touching her back. If anything feels wrong. I know. She turned, letting him see her fear and determination. But this is my fight too. He watched her enter the elevator, every instinct screaming to follow. But Sophia was at school, protected by Webb's people, and Victoria had her own security now, former operators Jake trusted. Still, letting her go felt like tearing off a piece of himself. His phone buzzed. Webb, Drake just entered the building. He's early. Jake's blood chilled. They'd expected Drake to wait, to let Victoria make her case to the board first. Moving now meant he knew something. In the boardroom, Victoria faced 12 people who'd once respected her, now looking at her like a stranger. Her former CFO, Harrison, wouldn't meet her eyes. The allegations are serious, Victoria, the board chairman said. Espionage, theft of military secrets. All fabricated by Colonel Drake to steal my technology. She opened her laptop, began her presentation. I have proof. The doors burst open. Drake entered with 4 men, their suits not quite hiding tactical gear. Victoria's hand moved toward the panic button under the table. No need for that, Ms. Chen. Drake's smile was winter cold. We're just here to recover stolen property. I've stolen nothing. No? Then you won't mind explaining this. He produced a tablet showing security footage, Jake in her apartment, files visible on the screen. Your boyfriend has quite the collection of classified documents. Victoria's heart sank. They'd been watching longer than they'd known. Those documents prove you killed his team, she said steadily. Those documents prove nothing. Ghost, sorry, Mr. Sullivan, is a burned asset with a grudge. You're harboring a traitor. The board members shifted uncomfortably. This was beyond corporate politics now. Where is he, Victoria? Drake moved closer. We have his daughter's school surrounded. One word from me. You wouldn't. But she saw in his eyes that he would. She's 8 years old. Then tell me where to find him. Victoria's phone lit up with a text from Jake. Get out. Now. She stood slowly. I need to use the restroom. Drake nodded to one of his men. "Escort her." But as they reached the hallway, the lights went out. In the darkness, Victoria heard Jake's voice in her earpiece. He'd insisted she wear it. "Duck." She dropped as something whistled over her head. Her escort grunted, fell. Emergency lighting kicked in, showing Jake in tactical gear she'd never seen him wear. "We have 90 seconds before his team responds," he said, pulling her toward the stairwell. "Sophia." "Webb's getting her. Move." They descended 20 floors in a controlled fall, Jake's training turning stairs into a tactical advantage. But as they reached the parking garage, Drake's voice echoed through the building's PA system. "Ghost. I have something you want to see." Every screen in the garage lit up with security footage from Francis Parker School. Sophia in her classroom, unaware of the men in suits outside her window. "No," Jake breathed. "Surrender yourself, and she goes home safe. You have 5 minutes." Victoria grabbed Jake's arm as he turned back. "It's a trap." "I know." His eyes were wild, desperate. "But she's all I have." "No." Victoria's voice cracked. "She's not." But Jake was already moving, and Victoria could only follow as he walked back into Drake's web. The boardroom had been cleared except for Drake and his team. Jake entered with his hands visible but not raised. A soldier's surrender, not a prisoner's. "Let Sophia go first," he said. "After you're secured." Drake nodded to his men. As they moved to restrain Jake, Victoria stepped forward. "Wait. You want my AI system? I'll give it to you. Full access, all documentation. Just let them both go." Drake's eyes glittered. "Now we're being reasonable." She pulled out the encrypted drive, the one containing her life's work. "The decryption key is biometric. It needs my voice, my fingerprint, and a code only I know." "Victoria, no," Jake said. She met his eyes, trying to convey everything she couldn't say. "Trust me. I love you. This isn't over." "The code," Drake demanded. Victoria placed her finger on the scanner, spoke her voice authentication. Then, with shaking hands, she entered a code. The drive lit up, files cascading across the screen. Drake's tech specialist plugged in immediately, hungry for the secrets within. But as the files transferred, something else happened. Victoria's AI didn't just open, it awakened. And it was angry. "What is this?" The tech specialist yelped as his screen filled with cascading data. Victoria smiled coldly. "Did you really think I'd give you my life's work without insurance? The AI is designed to learn, Colonel. And right now, it's learning everything about you." Alarms blared as the building's security system went haywire. Doors locked, elevators froze, and every screen began displaying classified files. Not Jake's, but Drake's. Years of illegal operations, dead soldiers, buried reports. "You clever," Drake pulled his weapon, aimed at Victoria. Jake moved like liquid violence, putting himself between them. The bullet meant for Victoria caught him in the shoulder, spinning him down. "Jake." Victoria dropped beside him, pressing against the wound. Drake stood over them, gun steady despite the chaos. "All this for nothing. I'll still win. I always." The boardroom doors exploded inward. Webb's team flowed in like a tide, weapons trained on Drake's men. And behind them, impossibly, stood General Howard from the Pentagon, Victoria's contact. "Colonel Drake, you're under arrest for treason, murder, and about 50 other charges your victim's AI just sent to every major news outlet." Howard's smile was sharp. "Seems Ms. Chen's system works perfectly." Drake's face went white as he realized the depth of the trap. Victoria hadn't just given him access, she'd given him rope to hang himself. As medics worked on Jake's shoulder, Victoria held his hand, tears streaming down her face. "You knew," he managed through gritted teeth. "You knew they'd take the bait. I knew you'd never let me risk myself alone." She pressed her forehead to his. Partners, remember? Daddy. They turned to see Sophia racing toward them, Webb right behind. She threw herself at Jake, careful of his injury. I'm okay, baby, he promised. We're all okay. But looking at Victoria's tear-stained face, at the blood on his shirt, at the wreckage of the life they'd built in secret, Jake wondered if anything would ever be okay again. Drake was in custody, but the damage was done. Victoria's company was in chaos. Jake's identity was blown. And Sophia had seen her father bleeding, had felt the terror of being hunted. They'd won the battle. But as sirens wailed and reporters gathered, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that victory looked an awful lot like loss. Sometimes winning costs more than losing. Have you ever had a victory that felt like defeat? Share below and subscribe to see how our family rebuilds from the ashes. Northwestern Memorial Hospital's VIP wing was quiet except for the steady beep of monitors. Jake stared at the ceiling, his shoulder immobilized but healing. 3 days since the confrontation. 3 days of police interviews, federal debriefs, and media circus. But worse than all of it was the empty chair beside his bed. Victoria hadn't come back after that first night. She's at the office, Webb said from the doorway, reading his thoughts. Trying to salvage her company. Board's in full revolt. Investors are panicking. I know. Jake had seen the news. Chen Technologies stock in freefall. Victoria fighting alone to save her empire while he lay here, useless. She asked me to give you this. Webb handed over an envelope. Jake's name was written across it in Victoria's precise handwriting. Inside, a single sheet of paper. Jake. You gave me everything. Trust, love, a glimpse of family I never thought I'd have. But I've cost you everything in return. Your anonymity, your safety, Sophia's peace. Drake is finished, but the damage remains. My company needs me. Your daughter needs you. And we both know that together, we're too visible, too vulnerable. I'm not saying goodbye. I'm saying that sometimes love means letting go. Take Sophia somewhere safe. Start over. Be happy. Oh, my love. Victoria. Jake crumpled the letter, pain that had nothing to do with his shoulder ripping through him. She's wrong, Webb said quietly. You know that, right? Is she? Look what being near me cost her. Her company, her reputation. Her isolation. Webb pulled up a chair. Brother, I've known you since BUD/S. You've been running since Kandahar, since Beth. But that woman? She saw all of you, the operator, the father, the broken parts, and she didn't run. Until now. To protect us. No. To protect herself. Webb leaned forward. She's doing what you did after Beth. Building walls because caring costs too much. Jake thought of Victoria in his t-shirt, laughing with Sophia over ice cream. Of her fierce determination as she faced Drake. Of the way she'd said partners like it was a promise. Sophia keeps asking for her, he admitted. Smart kid. She knows what you're too stubborn to see. Webb stood. You've got a choice, Ghost. Keep running alone, or stop running together. That evening, Jake discharged himself against medical advice. He found Sophia at Webb's safe house, doing homework with one of the operator's wives. Daddy. She hugged him carefully. Are you better? Can we go home now? Baby, we need to talk. He sat beside her, choosing his words carefully. Things are complicated right now. We might need to move again. Her face fell. Without Victoria? She has her company to fix. That's stupid. Sophia crossed her arms. She loves us. We love her. Mom would say that's what matters. Jake's throat tightened. Sometimes love isn't enough. That's even stupider. Sophia pulled out her phone, showing him a video. Look. It was a news clip from that morning. Victoria at a press conference, facing down hostile reporters. But what caught Jake's attention was the moment she thought cameras weren't on her, the way her hand moved to the necklace he'd noticed her wearing. The one Sophia had made her during their time in hiding. 3 stones on a simple chain, one for each of them. "She's wearing our family necklace," Sophia said simply. That means she didn't really say goodbye. From the mouths of babes. Jake stood, decision crystallizing. "Get your coat." "Where are we going?" "To fix stupid." Chen Technologies' building blazed with light despite the late hour. Security tried to stop Jake at the lobby, but news of his confrontation with Drake had spread. They knew who he was now, the ghost who'd protected their CEO. The elevator ride to the top floor felt endless. Jake found Victoria in her office, surrounded by lawyers and crisis managers, fighting to save her company with words instead of weapons. "Need 5 minutes," she was saying into a phone. "The Tokyo investors can't pull out based on." She saw him in the doorway and froze. "Clear the room," Jake said quietly. The lawyers looked to Victoria. She nodded slowly, and they filed out, leaving them alone in the office where it all began. "You shouldn't be here," she said, not meeting his eyes. "Your shoulder is fine. Like my heart will be eventually, if you really want to do this." She turned to the window, the city lights blurring through unshed tears. "My company lost 60% of its value. The board wants me gone. Everyone I trusted is abandoning ship." "Not everyone." "Jake, please. I'm trying to do the right thing." "For who?" He moved closer, saw her fingers white-knuckled on the window ledge. "For Sophia, who cries for you every night. For me, who finally remembered what it feels like to not be alone. Or for you, because it's easier to push us away than risk losing us." "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly." He turned her to face him, gentle but insistent. "I did the same thing after Beth. Ran because I thought it would protect Sophia. But all it did was teach her that love means leaving." Victoria's composure finally cracked. "I destroy everything I touch. My marriage, my company. You saved us." Jake cupped her face, thumbs brushing away tears. "You saw through my walls, gave Sophia a mother figure, showed us both that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. Your daughter deserves better than a woman who... My daughter deserves someone who loves her, who makes her laugh, who wears her handmade necklace to board meetings." His fingers found the chain at her throat. "Who chooses to stay even when it's hard." Victoria's hand covered his. "The media will hound us. Drake's trial will drag everything into the light. Your past, my failures. Then we face it together. Like partners." She searched his eyes, and he let her see everything. The fear, the hope, the love he'd been too careful to speak. "I'm terrified," she whispered. "Me too. But I'm more terrified of life without you." The space between them vanished. The kiss was desperate, healing, a promise made without words. When they broke apart, both were crying. "Sophia's downstairs," Jake said. "Probably charming your security team." "Of course she is." Victoria laughed through her tears. "How did I fall in love with both of you so fast? Same way we fell for you. No walls, just truth." She kissed him again, softer this time. "My company might not survive this. Then we'll build something new. Together." "Jake Sullivan, are you asking me to go into business with you?" "I'm asking you to go into life with me. Business, family, whatever comes next." Victoria's smile was radiant. "Yes." They went downstairs hand in hand, finding Sophia teaching card tricks to the security guards. She looked up, saw them together, and launched herself at Victoria. "You came back." "No, sweetheart." Victoria held her tight. I never really left. Love isn't about perfect circumstances. It's about imperfect people choosing each other anyway. When was the last time you chose love over fear? Tell us below, and don't forget to subscribe for the final chapter. As they left the building together, Jake caught their reflection in the glass doors. A soldier, a CEO, and a little girl who'd brought them together. Not a conventional family, but theirs. The city stretched before them, full of uncertainty and challenge. Victoria's company might fail. The trial would be brutal. Their pasts would be dissected by strangers. But as Sophia chattered about her play, as Victoria's hand found his, Jake realized none of that mattered. They'd chosen each other. Chosen to stay. Chosen to build something from the broken pieces of their separate lives. And that choice, more than any mission he'd ever completed, felt like victory. Act 9, Resolution. 6 months later. The Navy Pier ballroom glowed with soft light as guests took their seats. April in Chicago meant unpredictable weather, but today the sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, turning Lake Michigan into liquid sapphire. Jake stood at the altar in a charcoal suit, Webb beside him as best man, both men looking uncomfortable in anything but tactical gear. "Still time to run," Webb murmured, grinning. "Not a chance," Jake replied, his eyes fixed on the doors. The music changed, and Sophia appeared first, scattering rose petals with theatrical flair. She'd insisted on a dress that sparkled like Victoria's eyes, and she'd gotten it, a confection of tulle and sequins that caught the light with every step. The audience chuckled as she paused halfway down the aisle to wave at her classmates from Francis Parker. Then the doors opened fully, and Jake forgot how to breathe. Victoria stood framed in sunlight, her dress simple but elegant. She'd never been one for excess. But it was her smile that stopped his heart, radiant and unguarded, the walls finally gone. Patricia, her former assistant turned maid of honor, walked beside her, but Jake only had eyes for the woman who'd saved him as surely as he'd saved her. Their eyes met across the distance, and he saw their whole journey in that gaze, from a dark alley to a bright altar, from suspicion to trust, from loneliness to love. General Howard, who'd become an unlikely friend through the trials, officiated. "Dearly beloved, we gather today to witness something remarkable, two people who found each other not in spite of their scars, but because of them." Victoria reached Jake, took his hands. They were steady now, both of them. No more running, no more hiding. "Victoria," Jake began, his voice strong. "You asked me once who I was. I've been a soldier, a ghost, a window cleaner. But the only identity that matters is this: I'm the man who loves you. Who promises to stand beside you through hostile takeovers and homework help, through board meetings and bedtime stories. You gave me back my life by choosing to share yours." Victoria's eyes shimmered. "Jake, you showed me that strength isn't about standing alone. It's about having the courage to let someone stand with you. You and Sophia didn't just change my life. You became my life. I promise to love you both through nightmares and dreams, through victories and setbacks. You're my family, my heart, my home." "The rings," Howard prompted. Sophia stepped forward importantly, producing 2 simple bands from her sparkly purse. "I helped pick them," she announced to the audience, earning warm laughter. As they exchanged rings, Jake remembered another exchange, a hard drive for a life, a trap that became salvation. Drake was serving life in military prison. Chen Technologies, under Victoria's renewed leadership and with some strategic consulting from Sullivan Security, their new joint venture, had not just recovered but thrived. The AI system that had exposed Drake now helped identify threats to other whistleblowers and protected families like theirs had once needed protection. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," Howard declared. "Jake, you may kiss your bride." Their kiss was gentle, a seal on promises already made in harder times. But Sophia tugged on Jake's jacket before they could get too lost in it. "My turn," she announced, and they swept her up between them, a 3-way hug that had the audience reaching for tissues. The reception was a blur of joy. Victoria had worried about merging their worlds, her tech executives with Jake's operator friends, but watching her CFO learn tactical breathing from a former SEAL while Webb taught her head of development about cryptocurrency, she realized walls weren't the only things they'd torn down. Mrs. Sullivan. Jake found her during a quiet moment, the title still new on his lips. Mr. Chen Sullivan, she corrected, smiling. We agreed to hyphenate. Fair enough. He spun her onto the dance floor as the band played something slow and sweet. Any regrets? Only one. She leaned into him. I wish we'd found each other sooner. We found each other exactly when we needed to, Jake said. When we were ready to be found. Across the room, Sophia was teaching Victoria's board members her card tricks, having shed her flower girl duties for entertainment. She caught her parents watching and waved enthusiastically. She's going to run that boardroom one day, Victoria laughed. God help us all. But Jake's voice was proud. His daughter had bloomed in these 6 months, the nightmares fading, the laughter returning. Having Victoria in their lives had healed wounds he hadn't even known were still bleeding. Mind if I cut in? Webb appeared, offering his hand to Victoria. Got to dance with the woman who tamed Ghost. As they switched partners, Jake found himself face to face with Patricia, who'd become like family through the chaos. You know, she said as they swayed, I've worked for Victoria for 8 years. I've never seen her like this. Like what? Happy. Really, truly happy. Patricia smiled. Thank you for that. Jake glanced at his wife, laughing at something Webb was saying. She saved me first. The party continued into the evening, but eventually Victoria and Jake slipped away to the balcony. Chicago spread before them, the city where they'd found each other, lost each other, and chosen each other. Remember the first time we were here? Victoria asked. Well, not here exactly, but in an alley. You in designer clothes, me in coveralls. You disappeared like smoke. She turned in his arms. Promise me something? Anything. No more disappearing. No matter what comes, we face it together. Together, he agreed, sealing it with a kiss. Mommy. Daddy. Sophia burst onto the balcony, still vibrating with excitement. Are we really going to Disney World tomorrow? We really are, baby girl, Jake confirmed. Their honeymoon, a week at the happiest place on earth, because Sophia had informed them that family honeymoons were way better than regular ones. Best day ever. Sophia hugged them both, then scampered back inside to spread the news. Victoria watched her go, then looked up at Jake. Think we can handle it? Normal family life after everything. I think, Jake said slowly, that our version of normal will be perfectly us. A year ago, he'd been invisible, cleaning windows and running from ghosts. She'd been untouchable, building empires and walls with equal determination. Now they stood together, scarred but whole, proof that sometimes the best things come from the most unexpected places. I love you, Victoria said simply. I love you too. Jake pulled her close. Both of you. Inside, their guests toasted their future. Outside, the city lights twinkled like promises. And somewhere between the two, a soldier who'd learned to stop running and a CEO who'd learned to stop hiding held each other, ready for whatever came next. Because they'd learned the most important lesson of all. Home isn't a place you find. It's a choice you make every day to see and be seen, to love and be loved, to stay when staying is hard. And as the stars came out over Chicago, Jake Sullivan and Victoria Chen Sullivan chose each other, chose their daughter, chose the beautiful, messy, perfect life they'd built from the pieces of who they used to be. The ghost was gone. The walls were down. All that remained was love. Thank you for joining Jake, Victoria, and Sophia on their journey from strangers to family. Love often finds us when we least expect it, in the most unlikely places. Have you found unexpected love in your life? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more emotional journeys. Remember, sometimes the best families are the ones we choose.